Janet, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Janet Schultz, and I'm owner and founder of Blue Jay Cleaning Business in a Box. I'm a mother of two adult children. I'm a grandmother of two. I'm a special education teacher and a social entrepreneur.
That's pretty cool. All right. How did this blue jay in a box happen?
Well, it happened back in 2000. Well, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit within me. As back far as I can remember, I always had dabbled into um, businesses, home-based businesses. So that was just kind of a part of who I was. I'm a risk taker at heart, so I feel like you have to have that sense of adventure to be an entrepreneur, and I definitely have that. But I was in the classroom uh, for many years, for the reason of needing to make a living. So I did that,
Mhm.
and then it was in 2007 I got remarried, and in that relationship, he had a construction company. And so I came alongside of him and I helped, in that construction company and really enjoyed for the first time I had, a business. That entrepreneurial part of me came out and was allowed to blossom. So I realized some things about myself, some things that I was naturally suited for marketing, sales. I'm very good with people and just have a sense of what works and what doesn't. So it really gave me a forum to kind of grow in those areas. And unfortunately, things did not work out. And I was once again faced with a life altering life happening,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., divorce, and had to go back into the workforce. And having had a taste of being an entrepreneur, I knew I could not go back in the classroom.
Yeah.
I would be like a bird in a cage.
Mhm.
And so I was undergoing trauma at the same time because, like I said, it was not an expected or a wanted situation. So I was thrust in, trying to figure things out. And, I've got to support myself again, and I don't recommend that for anybody, but that was where I was. And so I began to, when I was a single mother the first time and raised my two girls, I taught school and cleaned houses on the side. And I'm very good at cleaning, I'm very detailed oriented, but I certainly don't like it,
Mhm.
but I'm good at it. What I do like is having my own business, being a small business owner, which I very much support small businesses in my community. And so, having, okay, that, no, what can I do? I don't want to go back in the classroom. Oh, okay, I'll start a cleaning company. And so, okay, so I'm going to do that. And now I need to come up with a name. And so I want it to be eco friendly. And blue was a synonymous color with clean, and J for Janet, my name. So it had no reference to the bird. Now, later on, down 2 years down the road, Sue, blue became obvious that it was the color of autism awareness,
Mhm.
which at the time, 2 years prior, I didn't know that. So things are starting to connect and to play out. So fast forward, I started shooting out emails to my friends and all that, and they could tell, they could read between the lines. Things aren't going well. Janet's in she's having some trouble. So they all rallied around me and gave me work. Well, Sue, it became obvious that I was growing way too fast for me to do all the cleaning.
Mhm.
So it was time for me to start bringing employees on to help me. And at that time, I was doing residential, and we found our niche in small office cleaning.
Mhm.
So we're not competing with other big cleaning companies that would clean hospitals and
Mhm.
large corporations, warehouses. That was not our competition. So we kind of fell in with our own niche with small office. And I had people say, Do you really think there's a market for that? And I said, yes. And that became true, that there is a niche for that and a need. So when I began to bring people on, I was quickly disappointed and disillusioned and discouraged and frustrated. You know, people wouldn't show up. They came with attitudes. They wouldn't clean the way I would tell them to, because early on, Sue, I developed a cleaning process.
Mhm.
This is how you clean a bathroom. This is how you clean windows. So everything was broken down in the task analysis. And that was the teacher part of me coming out.
Oh yeah.
But no, the comment, well, I know how to clean. Well, no, you don't, because cleaning for a business is different than you cleaning your home. It's different. So just came with so many issues, and just out of pure desperation, I just cried out. I call it a prayer, but just to cry out, where are my employees? And then all of a sudden, it just came to me that I need to look, and it was an epiphany. It came to me that, well, you need to look at people on the spectrum. Well, consequently, in my teaching days in the classroom, I taught what in North Carolina we have a diploma track, which allowed students to gain work hours towards a certificate, to a high school diploma, and teach them work related skills. And that's what I did. And I was in my zone with that. And also, people with autism, we just got each other.
Mm-hmm.
I got them and they got me. So we just naturally gravitated.
Mm-hmm.
And so informally, nothing formal, but recently I've been informally diagnosed with perhaps having adult autism. As a woman, it's very different looking than it is in a male. Yeah, so that's interesting. So I just, didn't want to just jump on that bandwagon. It needed to make sense. So I started listening, and doing some research, and talking to people in that world that I happen to have connections with. And I was told that by someone in Autism Speaks that I would see, and back then it was 2014.
Mhm.
And then she said, she said, Janet, you're going to start seeing, or we are as a culture, will start seeing companies like yours, social enterprises, because I wanted to align myself with a cause.
Mhm.
I didn't want to just have a business. I wanted to have a business that had a cause behind it,
Mhm.
So I was searching for that cause. Would it be veterans? Would it be human trafficking? Would it be prisoner? I was just still looking for that cause.
Mhm.
So now, okay, this is my cause. And so she said, you will see a lot of companies like Blue Jay starting up, because you have kids that now have graduated through the system, are now adults at home, very capable, but cannot find a job.
Mhm.
And if they have a job, they do not have skills
Mhm.
to keep that job. So that makes sense, because what the crisis in our society is, that people with disabilities, and autism falls into that, have the highest unemployment rate.
Oh yeah.
So it affects us all. We
Yeah.
are all now in this day and time affected, or know someone that is affected by autism, and are faced with those challenges. Parents are faced with those challenges. What happens after high school?
Mm-hmm.
And I chose to be a social enterprise over a nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
because a social enterprise, to me, I can do, well, it's a business for profit that addresses a social need, and that's a high unemployment rate of those on the spectrum.
Mhm.
But we also involve ourselves into our community. It's a community-based model that we integrate ourselves into the community. Some of the things that we did, we got involved in fostering the pet fostering community. We got involved in gardening for the community. So we did a lot, not we outside of ourselves, and
Mhm.
that's being a social enterprise. Doing things in your community. Sharing, giving back.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm giving back to people with autism and giving them a job opportunity, but we got to think beyond that, the
Yeah.
business itself.
Mhm.
And so it seemed like everywhere I went, I was hearing someone that had autism, so I just really, okay, I stood up and took notice.
Mhm.
And then the word got out in our little community that I was looking to do that. And we even were awarded a grant by Autism Speaks in the beginning because they were behind us. They wanted us to succeed. There
Mhm.
was nothing like this. There are other nonprofits, not a bit cleaning business, but there is one that I know of in Chapel Hill, but it's a nonprofit. But
Mhm.
this is the first that I know of its kind that is a duplicate I developed for and in part by those on the autism. They had input
Mhm.
into this business model that is duplicable and is a prototype that we can pass off to someone else for them to do what we did in our community.
So cool.
And
So
so
cool.
people with autism, I sought them out.
Mhm.
Why? Well, not only did they face challenges in the workforce, but they had the skills I needed:
Mhm.
dependability, reliability, honesty to a fault. They routine driven. They get better with time, and they don't get bored with it. They're not going to get involved in drama. They go there and they work. They don't involve themselves in chit chat,
Mhm.
and they're detail driven. Now, you
So.
can't put everybody in a box, Sue.
Mhm.
Okay, so some people didn't make the cut, and it is a business,
Mhm.
so you had to interview, and our interview process was by way of job shadowing because they don't do well in the social
Mhm.
realm. That's a challenge,
Mhm.
but we don't shy away from those challenges. We meet them head on.
I love
And they
that.
were able to, within Blue Jay, it was like a cocoon because I understood them, and they were able to gain confidence and achieve success and failure, which is very important.
Mhm.
We have to allow our young people everywhere to fail. We cannot deny them that.
Mhm.
That. And so and build their resume.
Mhm.
Everybody who came through Blue Jay as a person on the spectrum, this was their first job.
Mhm.
So we still have some. I sold the first Blue Jay that I had for 12, 13 years back in 2021 because what I'm doing now, promoting the Blue Jay business in a box,
Mhm.
is what I intended all along,
Mhm.
to do. But some are working still with Blue Jay, and then some have gone on. Adam, he gained a lot of confidence within himself. He got his license to drive. He became a team leader. He became able to take people to jobs and back. And then got he didn't want to work for Blue Jay anymore. Not there was anything wrong with it, but he had aspirations for himself.
Mhm.
Working for Federal Express was his dream job, and that's where he is today.
Wow.
And so I was able to help him develop those skills and confidence. So we're mentors too.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we're in bringing education to the public that they come in, our clients and so forth, because they may be the only person that they've ever met with autism. I
Mhm.
told them, I said, you're on display. People are watching you. And so we became like family.
Mhm.
And so clients that are attracted to us are clients, well, first of all, mom and pops, usually small business,
Mm-hmm.
because the bigger companies really don't want to come and clean their small office.
Mm-hmm.
So we're filling a need for them. And consistency, people on
Mm-hmm.
the spectrum offer me consistency
Mm-hmm.
because they will follow the process. They will not get bored with a routine. So that is a big key in the cleaning world. That is a big need of finding a consistent cleaning
Mm-hmm.
company. So we met that need, and they liked being a part of something bigger than just hiring a cleaning company. So they got to involve themselves with our workers, and so they developed relationships, and they learned communication, and it was just endless. The once a teacher, always a teacher.
Right.
So I wasn't in the classroom anymore, but yet I was.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just natural. And I don't know how much time we have, but I think the most inspiring things would be to share some stories, because it's not just my story I want to
Mm-hmm.
tell,
Mm-hmm.
it's their story. And I owe everything to them because, like I said in the beginning, when I was starting this business, I was undergoing such emotional trauma that they hung in there with me. They were so patient with me because I wasn't always on the top of my game.
Mm-hmm.
I owe so much to them.
That's beautiful.
So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear that. I also want to hear first, though, like, where do you want this
Yeah.
to go? So now you had Blue Jay, and now it's Blue Jay Business in a Box. So people are able to, talk little bit about that and what you want that to become. And yes, definitely, like, inspire with those stories, because that's huge.
All right. So, what is my vision for Blue Jay cleaning business in a box? My vision is, well, is to is to have it everywhere, because it doesn't just work in Concord, North Carolina. I've got one that's starting up this month in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Mm.
So it's not just a North Carolina thing, it's a Colorado thing, it's a Canada thing, it's a community thing in the Philippines, because everywhere people are affected,
Mhm.
by, you know, the the working issue that people on the spectrum face.
Mhm.
So it solves a problem. I'm the type of person too that I've always been this way, and I guess it's the best explanation. If I see a problem and I just get a passion about it and I can see a solution, I'm going to do what I can to make that solution happen.
Mhm.
If it's just in my little circle. Um, so my vision is that it would be everywhere that's possible.
Mhm.
And what I'm trying to do now is finding those nonprofits or other businesses or groups that we share the same goal
Mhm.
in the end, but I'd like to align myself with them so that maybe they're looking to start to a business,
Mhm.
um, so that they can employ people in their community, their group home,
Mhm.
and so it could be, that's kind of what I would like to do is, and it seems like it's happening because that I'm going to be speaking at an event not far from Concord in July, and been invited to a networking group here in Charlotte. So that's kind of, I got to align myself with people like that. And then just for people, parents, special educators like myself, people that want to be a part of something bigger,
Mhm.
that want to give back to their community, to help give someone a helping hand, not a handout,
Mhm.
because this is not about that at all. I do not coddle my autistic employees. I probably expected and was harder on them than I was anyone else. But I didn't lower the bar. The bar was high, and they reached it every time.
Mhm.
So it's not about that. It's not a handout at all.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody gets a job with Blue Jay. And sometimes I had to fire some because they weren't ready
Mm-hmm.
emotionally or socially and behaviorally.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of factors that go into, but it is not, I'm not giving anyone a job. I'm offering them an opportunity.
That's beautiful. Tell me your favorite success story.
Okay, I'm going to tell you about Eric since I've already told you about Adam. Eric was my first person that I hired on the spectrum. And I want to make sure everybody understands that I sought these guys out because they had the skill set I needed. So we helped each other. So Eric was my first hire, and I was told that Eric really probably wouldn't be able to work independently. And so you have to be able to work independently.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't believe that. And so in the end, Eric was allowed. I trusted Eric. And see, I expected of him and I expected of all my employees until I was proven otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And so Eric lived with his mom and she had developed cancer. And she was no longer, this particular day, she was no longer able to take him to work. Now, at this time, Eric had been with Blue Jay for a little while. He had earned the right he got promoted, he got a raise. He was what we call the keeper of the keys. And there was a pretty large ring of keys.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody dared take those keys away from Eric. And they tried, but didn't succeed. And I told that person who was not on the spectrum, like you and me, I said, you got to trust Eric with the keys. He's the keeper of those keys. Do not take those keys from Eric. So, and some people couldn't understand. I know I'm rambling, but some people couldn't understand how I was able to give them so much responsibility. I trusted them.
Mm-hmm.
They were the ones in charge a lot of the times. So Eric found himself, and I couldn't take Eric this particular time. He never asked me either. But it became apparent later that when Eric was on his job, I don't know how it came up in conversation, but I said, Eric, how did you get to work today? He said, well, I took the bus. And Eric really didn't talk much.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't say he was nonverbal, but he didn't talk much. And so I said, well, you rode the bus? He said, yeah. I said, well, how did you know what bus to take? He said, well, I got on the computer and I looked at the bus routes that I would need to take from my house area to my job. And that's what I did. And I said, how about the vacuum cleaner? Because we had so little capital that we only had like one vacuum cleaner for many jobs. So we had to take that vacuum cleaner all around. We had humble beginnings, believe me. And so he said, I just took it with me on the bus. And so Eric, to everyone's surprise, you see what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
That Eric, no one told Eric that he didn't ask anyone. He took responsibility for his own self. He had a problem. How am I going to get to work?
He figured it out.
He figured it out. And if given that opportunity, they can do it. Yeah. And see, that's what Blue Jay gave them. It gave them an opportunity to not to depend on someone, a job coach or a teacher, to tell them the next move to make. Because a lot of times in school, they're become what I call cue dependent. They are not allowed to problem solve and then figure it out. Whether they make a mistake or not, that's part of life. So they're not protected from those things, but encouraged. They've given the space. And evidently he gained the confidence within himself to do that. And when Eric had to leave and move to South Carolina because his mother passed away and he moved in with his sister, it was a big loss.
Oh, yeah.
It was a big loss when we lost Eric.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.